to introduce our panelists, they should be listed in front of you. Firstly, we've got Jose Luis Sanchez-Chora. He is the Subdirector of Pharmaceuticals for the Extremadura Health Service in Spain. He also sits on the National Pricing Committee as well. He's involved in creating very interesting new approaches to clinical trials within his region at the moment. So that's a very interesting side, which is why we've got him here. And then we have Mark Wilkinson as well, the Chief Executive of the Barnsley Clinical Commissioning Group, which is part of the NHS. Mark previously worked as the Director of Life Sciences and Innovation, where his role was specifically working with creating payer engagement strategies. So he tries to bring this to his new role wherever possible. So let's head straight over to Mark to start us off. Mark, we're just going to bring you into the conversation now. And we're going to give you control of the presentation now as well. So we should be able to hear you, Mark, if you want to say hi.
Okay. Hi, thanks so much, Ben. Good afternoon. So my name is Mark Wilkinson. I'm the Chief Officer of NHS Barnsley CCG. As Ben said, I will just load up my presentation, let you see that, and then we can get started.
Thanks, Mark. I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on this this webinar this afternoon. So my brief was to speak for about 10 minutes on the subject of creating perfect value propositions. We're not accepting anything else other than perfect value propositions this afternoon. I think the brief that you've all signed up for is in the bottom left-hand corner of that slide. I'm clearly not going to address the second bullet point. I am going to try and address bullet points 1 in that box. It's probably not too important to you to know very much about Barnsley, so I'm not going to major on that. Suffice to say that if you are interested, it's a small town in South Yorkshire, in the north of England, and we commission health services on behalf of about 250,000 people that live in Barnsley and surrounding areas. I wanted to actually use not kind of slides I've developed specifically for this session, although there are some of those, but actually share a little bit of the way in which, when I'm talking to other audiences, I actually introduce the CCG. Not because I think it's important that you know about Barnsley, because I don't really think it is, but I thought it might be helpful to just hear a little bit about how we talk about the organisation that we are creating. Before I get into that, I should perhaps say that, as like all the other clinical commissioning groups in England, we came into full force on the 1st of April this year. So we've actually just come towards the end of our first 100 days. So we are a very new organisation, and in terms of our responsibilities, we are responsible for commissioning local health services that meet the needs of the people of Barnsley. We do not commission primary care, GPs, dentists, etc., under the new arrangements. Neither do we commission more specialised, or what you might describe as tertiary health services. Those are commissioned by other new NHS organisations. So we commission the local health services. We have a budget of about £350 million per annum to commission health services that meet people's needs. And the way in which we talk about what we're trying to do is this. This is what we say. We are a clinically led commissioning organisation that is accountable to the people of Barnsley. We're committed to ensuring high quality and sustainable healthcare by putting the people of Barnsley first. So I think that offers some clues as to the things that we think are important to us. And we're trying to pull off quite a difficult trick. We're trying to be clinically led, more so than perhaps previous NHS commissioning organisations. We certainly want to be publicly influenced, and of course we need to be managerially enabled. And I guess my role is in delivering the last of those. It's a managerial enabling function. This is the description of Barnsley, but this actually applies to pretty much the whole of the north of England. So, you know, don't take it as Barnsley knowledge. Do take it as being something about the language and in terms of the way we describe our challenges. But this is very common, probably actually with much of the rest of England, and that's why I've decided to use it. And I suppose what's interesting is that through these slides, you know, we don't particularly talk about things like value. We don't particularly use words like value propositions and those types of things, although I appreciate these are very powerful terms for pharma colleagues. But this is Barnsley. It's a growing and increasingly elderly population. We've got widening health inequalities between our people and the rest of England. Not only are we not closing the gap in terms of life expectancy between Barnsley and the average, for the rest of our nation, but that gap is actually widening. In part, that's because of the next bullet point, high levels of deprivation. They're not going to be helped over the next few years by the significant challenge that all NHS commissioners, the entire NHS faces, and the broader UK public sector. We've got high levels of hospitalisation, and we have high levels of premature and we think avoidable deaths, principally from cancer and cardiovascular disease. So when we talk about our town and thinking about the words we use and the needs of the people we serve, that's how we would characterise it. What's leading to all that premature and avoidable mortality? Well, if you wanted to see it in a kind of picture format, it's pretty clear what's doing that. Smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and all those other factors. And I've put this slide up because I quite like it because it's a graphical kind of image, but also because I feel that one of the challenges for all of us, as I put there in quotation marks, the challenge for many organisations is to keep the main thing, and not be wandered off by not to wander off down potential blind alleys or to be distracted by other factors. So when we think about what is the main thing for us, then I would describe it in those terms for those reasons. Just want to get a little bit more specific now, and I just want to focus on this phrase, the perfect value proposition. That's actually what we're aiming to produce. And I think at a general level, I think there are three key points that I would want to make in terms of thinking about particularly getting to the perfect value proposition. And I think beginning on the left-hand side, the first thing I would say is that I think it doesn't come out of the ether, if you will. It's actually built on a solid business-to-business relationship between the pharmaceutical industry, between individual pharmaceutical companies, and ourselves as an NHS organisation. So what characterises that business-to-business relationship? It's a deep level of trust. It's about contact across all functions and at all levels. So it's knowing each other, it's being able to pick up the phone to each other, and it's also about understanding of our shared strategic objectives and how we work. And I think that the perfect value proposition in particular can only be built on that kind of business-to-business relationship. I wonder if, actually, before we get to the perfect value proposition, I wonder if we actually need to do some work to actually define a shared value framework before we come to a specific proposition. And I think the answer to that question is yes, we do. Do we have a clear view about what value looks like when we treat people who suffer from diabetes? When we're talking about cancer services and new medicines to treat people suffering from cancer, do we have some kind of shared value framework? I think there are some projects, including some that I've been involved with in my previous role, where industry and the NHS and actually other European payers came together to have a go at developing these shared value frameworks, which are condition specific. And to my mind at least, it would be helpful if we'd got those before we actually moved on to defining the perfect value proposition. And then the final point, which in a sense builds on my two previous points on this slide, it is simply to make the case that we innovate together. And if we accept that the perfect value proposition is going to be something that moves both of us forward, that is advantageous both to industry and to your requirements, and also to meet the needs of the NHS and the people, the patients to whom we're all ultimately accountable, this is something that we need to do together. Innovation requires collaboration, and that's about strong connections between customers and suppliers. Wanted to say just a little bit about where do medicines fit in for me as somebody who works in a clinical commissioning group. I think we probably spend around £60 million each year of our £350 million budget on medicines. The bulk of that goes on medicines that are prescribed in primary care, prescribed by family doctors in our area. But we also fund NHS providers, hospitals, who clearly provide hospital medicines that are prescribed in hospital and that kind of stuff as well. So I think in total it's about £60 million each year that we spend on medicines. We tend to come in the context of the NHS after NICE. has determined that a medicine is effective, and there's a whole set of HTA processes that I don't think we are really very close to. I suspect Jose is going to touch on this a little bit more, but we are really after that, I suppose, and we are a commissioner of health services and a funder of medicines. So as such, I would say that we're interested in medicines, but we're also interested in services that are connected to medicines. And I want to go on to give an indication as to what some of those might be. And above all, we're actually not interested in medicines, we're actually interested in outcomes. In terms of the relationship that we have with the pharmaceutical industry, some of this stuff is around what I think you would describe as non-promotional collaborations, but we've also entered into contracts where we have paid pharma companies to come in and deliver services to improve patient care that has perhaps been connected to medicines, but actually is not solely about prescribing. There can be some broader stuff as well. And my final point on this slide is simply to make the point that for me, I think there was something about comparators for medicines. For me, medicines need to stand comparison to any other choice that we could make in terms of how we use our resources. We have a phrase, making better use of the Barnsley pound, and we don't have an amount of Barnsley pounds that we think we wish to allocate towards medicines. So to address the question directly, what do we need to see in the value proposition? I feel slightly embarrassed about this slide in some ways because we are a new and emerging organisation, and I don't think particularly that this is hugely sophisticated, but nonetheless, in the interest of sharing with you, where we are, we don't yet talk very much about return on investment or those kind of terms, but clearly filling in a business case template or a business case document, which is where these headings are taken from, would allow us to produce some kind of return on investment calculation. So what are we looking to see in a value proposition? Well, it's all those headings. I'm not going to talk you through each of them, but kicking off with purpose and rationale and the evidence, and then moving through to, at the end, cost estimates, timescales for delivery, and what other options have been considered. So I'd be interested in your reaction to this. As I say, we have a business case template, and that's really the most I could offer to you in terms of how would we evaluate a value proposition that you would put to us. I think we will and probably do need to get more sophisticated. So, for example, we talk on the middle lines about anticipated quantitative and qualitative benefits. We don't draw much of a distinction, but I think we need to, between the benefits that impact on us as a CCG, the benefits that impact on, say, the health and social care system in Barnsley, and the broader societal evaluation. But we're not currently at a level of sophistication where we would differentiate between benefits that would be present for different elements of the system. So that's our current answer to that question. I think it probably needs to get a bit more sophisticated. And then my final slide is simply to identify what I believe are some of the opportunities for collaboration between the pharmaceutical industry and the NHS and for the clinical commissioning group. So I looked at our commissioning plan, I looked at our business plan for this year, and I distilled down all our priorities and all these activities, and I tried to place them in kind of fairly general terms. And I distilled our commissioning plan down into this 3x4 matrix that you've got on this final slide. I think these are the opportunities for us to work together. Some of these can be directly related to medicines. Others of them are perhaps bigger and broader points. But I would see those as being the key opportunities for collaboration. So with that, I've concluded the kind of formal content that I wanted to deliver. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll hand back to yourself, Ben.